Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Thomas Mason. First time here.
Hi,
We're
Thomas.
still wearing our diapers, so 30 days old. We had a great time here. My question really is, what is the ultimate vision that you have for PMC, maybe 5 years out that, give us something to look forward to? What is your vision for the program?
I have seen over the years, everybody that's built the biggest portfolio, including myself, I don't really look at how the market is, whether it's a stock, a bond, or real estate. I'm always acquiring real estate. I'm always buying. If it's something I believe in, I'm always buying it. Sometimes I'm paying a little more for it. Sometimes I get a discount on it, but I don't ever stop buying it. And I'm also a firm believer in holding enough real estate that regardless of what happens, if the dollar went to nothing, every piece of property that you own is going to wind up being traded in some form of currency, regardless of what that is. But every hard asset will be something that can be converted to, whether it's a dollar or something else, you can always convert a hard asset. Whether we're talking about tokenizing and digitizing real estate, which will happen very quickly, titles will be exchanged in a blockchain format. They won't be quote unquote done as they are now. But I was going deeper as in the US dollar goes away, the whole currency collapses. Every hard asset you own will be able to be traded or sold in some format.
Instantly.
Instantly in another format.
So
Whether it's the Chinese yen or God knows what, but something will be traded in.
Stephen mentioned this earlier during his presentation. He talked just briefly about Blue Owl. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the private credit markets, Blue Owl, just what's going on there and what some ramifications may be that we ought to be thinking about.
And I do think it might be indicative of a little bit more of the broader market, because one of the things that we've seen everywhere now, there's a lot of opportunity in not just every type of project from real estate to oil and gas to mining to saltwater disposal for the oil and gas. You had a lot of deals that brought in a lot of private credit, who now, with the tightening of the banks and the banks' unwillingness to lend at the same ratios and leverages that they were lending at, there's a lot of stuck capital out there that's going to be a problem for companies such as that, as well as other funds across the board, because they're not going to be able to get to a liquidity event. Now, what's interesting is the value of the asset is still there. Nobody's losing any money, but their path to liquidity traditionally through a bank credit facility for the master of the project to then be able to pay out is not there. It does, but it's also one of the biggest impacts, like to some of the multifamily developers and some of the oil and gas guys, was a changing of the ratio in which they could borrow funds from banks and institutions, therefore trapping equity. The money and the value is still in the deal, and the deal's still producing cash flow, but they can't create a liquidity event without a sale, which, that's a much deeper conversation. Chris, you can go into that because that'll force sales into the big boys. That'll crush the small and the middle and push it just to the big people sitting on tremendous amounts of cash.
I was curious if any ownership interest in real estate is eligible for like a 1031 exchange. For example, like if I buy a share of self-storage, or if I get like a small equity position for a private loan, or any number of small deals that like I don't entirely control. If like hypothetically, if a bunch of those paid off at one point, could I 1031 exchange that into like a larger piece of real estate, or like is that more reserved for like when you own a property yourself entirely?
There's a couple of different ways to do it, but it'd have to be looked at more on a case-by-case basis. But if the deal originally was set up as a DST, you can. By the way, just a quick note, if you put the mask on or not put the mask on, if you're above 25,000 feet, that's not a pressure mask. You're going to 90-night anyway till you get below 12,000 feet. It doesn't do a damn thing.
Have you beta tested that?
No, but unless you're a mountain climber and extremely athletic, anywhere in the flight levels above about 25,000 feet, you're going out in about 30 seconds before that mask gets on you. The pilots have pressure masks that blows oxygen in their nose. It's a totally different mask. It grips the face, and it literally blows actual oxygen out of the tank. Everything in the back is not anything but chemically made oxygen at a flow. You're going 90-night.
So my question is in vein with looking at the next generation and the legacy kind of thing. It's IBC related and policy loans. So I don't have kids yet, but I have nieces and nephews that need things like a credit scoring to build credit, right? Is there a way I could take out a policy loan, say for a car or something for them, issue it to them because I know that interest rate is going to be the 20 something that the bank is going to give them, but that even though I'm getting paid for it, they're still building their credit? Is there a way to structure that or do that?
Self-reporting, and there's a couple of servicers out there that will report private debt service. Kind of like a mortgage servicer will report, but there's a couple of them out there that have to take a while to dig them up. But I've seen 2 that will report private debt service to build it.
My biggest mistakes have been my greatest lessons. Who's willing to share their biggest mistakes and the lessons they learned from it?
Where my gut was right, but my brain tried to talk my way around it. And those have been some of the biggest mistakes that I've made over the years. And then a few times when I was younger, it was putting deals together, you're making good money, and you think it's always going to be there the next month. Instead of investing it, you kind of rise your living to what you're making.